planners and bullet journals, art projects, organized planner chic.
Well, hello, Planner Babes, and welcome to Organized Planner Chic. I'm Lucinda, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do so and select the bell for notifications. I publish 1 to 2 recorded videos per week on planning, junk journaling, craft room organization, and related shopping hauls. I also post an additional live video most weeks. And I want to thank all my Patreon members who help make it possible to create videos like this. Well, thank you guys so much, and if you're interested in supporting me on Patreon, just go to patreon.com/organizedplannerchic. Okay, you guys, I'm so excited to work on this project with you. It's going to be so fun and easy. We're going to just start off with a grocery bag, a paper bag, that you can get at the grocery store most of the time these days. And I remember growing up and always having these paper bags before it got really heavily into plastic. But places like Sprouts and Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, they pretty much always have paper bags as an option if you don't already have any. Of course, we all go to the grocery store, so you can grab one. So what I'm doing right here is just cutting the side, that corner where it folds on the side piece right there. It's kind of hard to describe, but you guys could see what I just did. And then I'm just going to continue across the bottom of the bag, and then that'll open it up a little bit so that I can cut open the very, very bottom without totally messing up the rest of the stuff. Like, you don't want to just start cutting down somewhere, anywhere. But by cutting just out the bottom piece, it really gives us a nice wide open rectangle of the paper bag. And so then we have the bottom piece that's a really nice strong piece that we can use in the future for something else. So we're going to make a seam all the way around. We're going to start here on the left, and we're just folding it in about 1 inch. I didn't do any measuring for these types of activities or steps in doing this. I just kind of eyeballed it. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of figuring out about how wide the whole thing that I want to cover. So for my traveler's notebooks, I always make them to be able to hold inserts and, well, when I make an A5 size, to hold inserts and bullet journals or planners. So this one is a planner that's kind of a hybrid planner and bullet journal. And then what I'm doing to make sure it's wide enough for everything that I want to do is I added about another 9 inches to the width of it. So I marked how wide it was, then I took my ruler and I added 9 more inches, and then I just marked that, and now I'm going across the top to just measure out the full length so it'll be in a straight line. And now I'm just going to cut all of the excess off. And you'll see in a moment why we wanted to have another 9 inches added to that, because we want pockets on the side. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just going ahead for the rest and folding over the 1 inch. So I didn't want to go ahead and fold over about 1 inch on the right side of the whole thing, because I knew I wasn't going to use the whole thing, and that would have been wasted effort, and it probably would have confused me, because I would have thought, oh, this is everything I'm working with, let me go ahead and do all the seams, but I didn't need that much. So I waited till I trimmed off the excess, and now I'm just matching up the 2 seams on the right to find my center. And then I'm just going to take my bone folder and really press that down, because these bags already have a bunch of creases in them, and I'm going to do different things throughout this to kind of make sure I'm paying attention to the right crease. But this is my center, and now I've got to mark my seam at the top and the bottom as well. So again, I'm just eyeballing this. I'm not taking a ruler and measuring out about 1 inch. I just want to have it look really clean when I'm all done with it, and making this seam makes that possible. Okay, so I'm just doing that, and then the I want to say cardboard. I keep wanting to call this cardboard, but it is not. It is a paper bag. So it's not completely smooth sometimes, like right there when I was just thinking I could just go straight down and I'd still have an inch. I really had to pay attention on the long pieces. So, and then it wants to kind of wrinkle up a little bit here and there, and then I just take my bone folder and smooth it out a little bit more. So again, if you don't have a bone folder, you can use a pen or pencil to press that with it, and that'll work out just fine. So now I'm trying to determine how high or where I want to trim it at the top. So I messed up on this part. So I'm going to show you what you should do, because I just did it all the way at the bottom. See where I have the planner? That's not. This is how you're supposed to do it. I did this in a previous video. So you see there at the top how I have about an inch above so that I have room to slide my pocket underneath, and then I have about another inch below. So you really want to set whatever it is, your insert or your planner or your notebook or whatever, above that bottom seam. So you want to sit your planner above that bottom seam that's folded up. Then you still want to mark the top like I did right there, but then you want to mark another inch above that. That's what I'm doing right here. I didn't forget that. I just started too low at the bottom. I should have started above the seam. So now I marked the top, then I marked another inch above that, and then you should mark another inch above that. And then you can have what you should have. So what you should do is set your planner or your insert above the bottom seam, mark the top of your planner, and then mark an inch above that and another inch above that. So you'd have 3 lines at the top. And then what you would do is you would fold in right along that center line. And that way you would have an inch seam above your planner or your insert, whatever you're going to put in this Traveler's Notebook cover or your cover, and you'd have an inch below it, just like the one that I showed you that I did correctly. Okay, so you would still fold in your seam. You would just fold it in that center line instead of, I only have 2 lines right here. So now we're getting the last seam pressed down, and as you can tell, it's probably a little tiny bit more than an inch maybe, but it's no biggie as long as everything lines up from my center when I fold it in. As long as everything looks like a nice, mostly kind of a square when it's all folded in, then we're good. Okay, so now I need to do my pockets. So that's why we did the extra 9 inches. So we're going to do 3.5 inch pockets on each side. So 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. And then we wanted to have a seam on the other end, which was made it 8. So that was 8 inches. And then we had a seam on the right, which would make it 9. So actually, you might need to check that. Depends on, because I can't remember if we already had a seam before I added the other inches. And of course, you can make your pockets as wide or as narrow as you want. Make sure it's not too narrow so that it will hold whatever you're putting in it. And then you want to make sure it's not too wide, because then it might be hard to slip stuff in there because the planner would be in the way or the inserts would be in the way. So I made mine 3 inches. So I marked on the outside and I did a line, and then I folded or marked it with a pencil, and then I'm folding along where I marked it with the pencil. So yeah, and then I have my pockets exactly 3.5 inches, or pretty much. So now we're going to take a glue stick. That's all we need. We don't need any heavy duty, wow, I can't talk. Heavy duty glue for this. It's just paper. It's just paper bag. And we're just going to take the glue stick and glue down those seams. And then I just take my bone folder and smooth everything down. It doesn't have to be perfect, because there is going to be all kinds of glue all over this thing when we get the Mod Podge out. Okay, so now these are the handles from the paper bag, and we're going to make pin loops out of them. You guys, you can make pin loops out of just about anything. So now I'm just taking the 2 sizes of pins that I mostly use, and I'm just determining about how much of this paper I need so that they will fit in there, and that they will also have room to be glued onto the bag or the cover that we're making. Okay, so yeah, I'm just slipping them in there. I'm just making sure I know about how much more room past that loop I need to glue, and then I'm marking it, and I'm just going to cut that out after I mark it. And then I'm definitely going to do 2, so I think I'm only going to show you 1 here in this clip. And then we're going to get the tissue paper and we're going to Mod Podge it on there. So guys, most of the time I used way more Mod Podge in this video than I actually needed to use. So I'll try to keep that in mind and tell you as I go. So look, I really didn't need as much as I'm pouring on this right now. Thin coat would have been fine, and not like too thin. I got to make sure I had coverage, but I didn't need to plaster it because the tissue paper is really thin, and then you're going to put glue on top of that also. So yeah, so we're just going to put it on here. I only opened up the tissue paper 1 time, as you can see right there, because I wanted a lot. Then I just rolled it over and then pressed down, and there's tons of glue on there. I'm just going to use my bone folder to smooth it out. Now I want to keep in mind, or let you keep in mind when you do this, we're not trying to make this tissue paper be smooth. That's not the objective here. I know there are projects when you do, but the wrinkles are part of the beauty and the texture of this, so we're not worrying about that. We don't want it to be mountains of hills of tissue paper, but it can be plenty wrinkly. That's totally fine. And so then after we wrap them up, then we're just touching them up or covering them with, right now, way more way more Mod Podge than I need to, but I definitely wanted to make sure it is around all around, so top, bottom, the edges, and all of that. So now I just marked where my center is. I folded it again, made sure took a pencil and marked where my fold or center is, because I wanted to what do you call this, reinforce the spine. So then on either side of the pencil mark, I put some masking tape from Dollar Tree. Yeah, and so I put a piece right in the center along where that pencil line was, and then I'm going to turn it over and just trim the excess. And then I did the same thing on the back, and I'm just pressing it down. Yeah, now I've got me a really nice reinforced spine. You could do that also with another piece of the paper bag. You could do that with a piece that we cut out, that bottom, but I just for some reason I like to use masking tape. Okay, so here's tissue paper for the inside. I just opened it up, all 4 squares, and I'm just marking where I want to put my Mod Podge, because I'm going to be putting a lot and it can start drying before you're ready to lay it down, so I didn't want to go further than I wanted to or needed to. And I really layered it kind of hodgepodge. That's funny. Hodgepodge, Mod Podge. And so now I'm just laying the tissue paper on there and pressing it down. Remember, I didn't separate layers or anything. This is a whole square of tissue paper that I opened up. And then I'm going to put Mod Podge on the top. And again, this was dabs, which I just feel like took longer. And I think it takes longer to dry that way. So, or globs of dabs like I'm doing here. So you'll see when I show you different ways here later on. So yeah, so I did that, and then I put Mod Podge on the rest of it, and I just did the same thing with another piece of the tissue paper right here, except for I layered over a little bit of the tissue paper that was on there before. I think it's about 1.5 inches maybe layered over that, and then I put the Mod Podge on the top, and of course I set that outside and let it dry. And then I just let it dry maybe a couple of hours. Maybe I continued to work with everything while it was still damp until we get to one point, and I'll tell you that. And so now we're just cutting I'm just cutting all of the excess tissue paper for that, because that was the inside, because with the inside we just want it to go to the edges. On the outside we're going to overlap the inside so it looks nice and clean. And so yeah, so this is I'm using my favorite teeny tiny pair of scissors for crafting that I got from Dollar Tree. I love these little scissors. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now I am just getting my pin loop ready, making sure that, again, that it fits, that I mark where I want to glue it. So I just took my brush there and marked where I wanted the glue to start and end. And I'm taking off some of the excess because I don't want it to be too much, because you know the glue spreads. And I just pressed down. I actually pressed down and held my hand down there for like 30 seconds. So I only did one. We're going to take care of putting them all on here a little bit later. So now that, well, the way I'm applying the glue right now is the way that I think is just a little bit more efficient, keeps me from wasting glue. So that's what I did that time. And also when I put it, now we're on the outside, by the way. We flipped it over. We're on the outside now. And so now when I put it over the top, I'm doing the same thing with the up and down strokes, and then I'm going to dab what's already on there into the paper. And I think that just works really well. It's fine the other way. Everything dried the other way. It just took a lot longer to dry because I had way more glue than I really needed. And I was actually running out of Mod Podge when I was doing this project. I was getting stressed because I did not want to go to the store. I was like, I really need to finish this. So it did work out. And I'm so glad I changed my approach. So now I'm just cutting the excess and leaving a border around the entire thing from the outside. We're going to flip that over. So we're going to put a little bit of Mod Podge onto, again, this is really thin tissue paper and I don't need that much glue. So I'm putting it on there and I'm doing that all the way around. I'm going to start just one side at a time and then I'm going to fold that over. And then after I fold it over, then I'm going to put a really thin coat over the top as well. So now when I was folding this over, it was kind of not pulling, how do I want to describe that? Like I wanted to make sure that it was flush with the paper bag, but that I didn't rip it. And so later on there and other places, I kind of tucked it in a little more. I think maybe on the other end, I was rolling it and tucking it in to make it try to look a little more flush. Yeah, right in here on the outside. So, I was doing on the inside so that it would look flush on the outside. And now everything's dry and we are, well, it's mostly dry. It's still enough for me to be able to work with. When I say that, it can feel dry, but it still has like a teeny tiny bit of a dampness or a little bit of stickiness or whatever. You can continue to work with it, but you don't want to do certain things because it will continue to adhere. Like it doesn't cure completely till at least 48 hours. So what I'm doing right here so that I can continue to work is I am putting masking tape on the inside of my pockets before I close them up, because again, it hasn't cured completely, so that glue will still keep sticking. I've had that happen to me before. And so I'm going to put the masking tape, and it's just going to stay there for forever. And it might one day, from things being passed in and out of the pocket, start to come apart, and that's totally fine because I know that everything will have completely cured at that point. It won't matter. It's not going to stick to itself. So yeah, so I'm just putting enough layers to cover up that whole inside part of the pocket, and then I'm going to flip it and cut off the excess so that it will look nice and clean with my beautiful set of teeny tiny scissors. And of course I'm going to do that for both pockets. So I'm working on getting my pin loop. I just wanted to make sure I have it where I wanted it first. As you can see, I had positioned it too high, and so now I'm repositioning it and working on that and putting some more glue just because I had taken it off. I don't need too much, Lucy. And then I'm going to put it back and I'm going to press down. And again, I pressed down about 30 seconds whenever I actually did it, but it's going to look in the video like I did it for 2 seconds. So, because, you know, I edited the video. So yeah, right here I'm pressing and I'm actually doing that for about 30 seconds, not the 2, 3, 4, 5, seconds that it looks like. Alright, so now I'm just adding a little bit of extra glue all around the edge on the pocket to make sure it stays there. And we're going to let that dry. And I did the same thing with the other pin loop on the other side. So I realized that on the front I didn't really have any hearts on the front cover whenever the notebook is closed and the cover is closed, and so then I just cut around the hearts on another piece or another one of the napkins, and then I'm just putting some Mod Podge on that and putting it here on the front so that it will look nice and beautiful. Both sets of napkins came from Dollar Tree. I actually squeezed some of my Dollar Tree Mod Podge into this container because I was almost out. And then what else did I have in there? And the tiny scissors are from Dollar Tree. So this is what it looks like before I put anything in here. We're going to do that together. I wound up having, just because of my schedule, having to put my elastics in at the doctor's office. But I'm going to link for you guys in the iCard and in the description below a really short but real time, it's not sped up at all, video that shows you how to put in your elastics for a traveler's notebook. I usually just use that video when I make a traveler's notebook now because it's the same process every time and it's easy. And so here you can see where I taped it. So yeah, that's what I wound up doing, is having to tape it with clear tape at the bottom and the top. And now I'm going ahead and making sure it fits. What we're going to make today is a cover for this notebook. So we're going to start with the paper bag. I already cut mine down to size. Now on other projects where I've used a paper bag, I used a lot of Mod Podge, but I'm only going to use that on the outside. Well, you'll see what I mean when we get to that point. But I'm going to use just masking tape to tape all the way around. And this project might remind you a little bit of high school and covering your textbooks, but I'm going to be doing a whole lot more taping, and you'll see as we go along. So we're just going to take the masking tape and tape all of the edges down really smoothly, and that's going to make such a difference when we get started painting. Yes, and you don't want to use any other type of tape for this. No clear tape, nothing with a smooth surface, because that may not work with the paint. But this masking tape is perfect because it is porous and the paint will adhere to it very, very well. And now all of that is taped, so now we're going to fold in our sides at 3 inches on each side. And we're going to just make sure, I had already folded mine, but now that it's had tape and everything, I want to make sure it's correct, and that on the inside of that, where the opening is going to be in the pocket, that everything is straight so that it'll look really nice and neat when we're all done. So yes, I'm taking my bone folder again and smoothing that out, and now I'm going to take the masking tape again here to fold the pockets. And I'm going to align that tape horizontally about halfway down the tape. I hope that makes sense. You'll see when we fold it over. And then I'm going to cut this excess, and then I'm going to fold it over so that I have about the same amount of tape on the top and the bottom, on each side rather. And then it'll look really neat. And of course I did that all the way around on all 4 sides of the pocket, the tops and the bottoms. And now I'm just going to double check and make sure that my notebook fits inside the cover. You want to be sure and do that before you start painting. You've done all that work and then you have to take something apart again, because nobody wants to do that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is reinforce the outside, and we're going to put some tape on both sides of the crease, and then we're going to put another piece in the very middle, and we're going to trim the excess. And this time I had it go extend across the top and the bottom, so I'm going to cut the excess off the top and the bottom. Now, because a paper bag is actually multiple pieces of paper that have been glued together, then we're going to add some masking tape also wherever we see those places where you see like two pieces have come up against each other on the paper bag. And you can kind of see those pretty easily if you look for them. It's just where you can see like a little teeny tiny gap or coming together of the paper. And then I just take my bone folder and smooth that out. And you may not catch all of them. I'm sure I didn't catch some probably in the inside. But then you're just going to tape that and then cut the excess. And that's just going to help make sure that it all stays together, that pieces don't pop up later on after use, and that everything is just pretty strong with all of the tape around there. Of course, a paper bag is the grocery paper bags are pretty strong as well, the big ones, which is what I'm using here. And now that is all taped up and we can start painting. So I'm using some Goodwill paint that I've had for a really long time, and it turned out to be nice and opaque. So I wound up using 2 coats. It did pretty well with just 1 coat, but I could still see the masking tape some, so I did 2 coats in the end. And it was pretty matte, but it's going to be shiny later. And so now I wanted to use this Dollar Tree jumbo sticker set that I got recently in a haul on something, and I thought this would be perfect. I'm going for blues and greens for this project, so I put one of them at the top and just tried to center it and let there be a little bit of overlay. And then I'm going to put one right underneath that one, and then I'm just going to fold the excess inside. And I just thought that would be nice to decorate the spine and incorporate the colors that I'm going for, and maybe even give it even more strength. Since I'm not adding any glue all the way around yet at this point, and I'm not using any fabric, and I'm not using any additional paper, I just thought that would be good. And so now I'm just smoothing that all out with the bone folder, and then I'm going to fold into that crease for the center again, and then smooth it out some more with the bone folder, just to help everything lay down a little bit better as I work with it, because it becomes bulky because I've got 2 different layers of stickers on it. So yeah, I'm just going to smooth that out as best I can with my bone folder, which, you know, I love to use my bone folder. It's just therapeutic to me, smoothing stuff out. Okay, and so then I'm going to put 2 more on the inside, and I'm just layering that a little bit differently so I can still see the parts that I folded over before, and then I'm just smoothing that out. And now I'm going to cut out a bunch of flowers and stems and petals from a giant Dollar Tree gift bag that I had in the same recent haul. And I'm going for blues and greens, so I'm just cutting out all of the blues and greens that I think I want to use for this. And it's mostly blue on this bag. I'm going to actually go to a different bag to get some greens, because there aren't very many here. And I'm also getting some white, because I feel like splashes of white really bring out the 2 colors when you're using 2 colors. I almost feel like you really need 3 colors when you're working with something, and white is my favorite 3rd color. So I'm cutting out some white flowers as well. And then I'm just going to be layering those around, trying to see where I think I want them to be here in just a moment. But first, I found a wealth of blue and white flowers and petals on the side of this bag. So anytime you're crafting with a gift bag, then be sure and check out the side, because this is definitely going to work. And now this is the other bag that I mentioned that I'm going to cut out some greenery, because there's just a lot more green on this, and I think that's going to work out nicely. So now I have cut out all the pieces, and I haven't glued anything yet, but I'm using my cell phone to take a picture of how I laid everything out so that I can recreate that when I glue them. Now I'm kind of moving slow here because I know that I'm going to have multiple layers, and I wanted to see which layer I'm going to need to glue first so that everything turns out the way that I wanted. So I think I got that all figured out, and now I'm just going to start with this set first. I'm using some Mod Podge and a matte finish that I've had for a long time, and just to put the petals or put each piece down first before I glue on top of all of them. And I didn't use as much Mod Podge as I could have when I first started. Like on this piece, I was being a little too conservative, and so it was harder to get each petal to lay down. But the more I worked with it, the better I got at putting more glue to begin with, especially on the back. And so I'm just taking my bone folder to smooth out all of the pieces and adding little pieces of glue here and there, because again, I didn't start off with enough glue to lay all of these pieces down, but it's all going to come together anyway. So now I've glued each piece down, and now I'm just going to take some Mod Podge in a glossy finish and put it all over the top of everything on the front side. Yeah, and I'm just taking my time and smoothing that all out, and it's just going to give a balanced finish because the paint was very matte, but there was a little bit of gloss. Even though that was a matte finish, Mod Podge that I used to glue the pieces, and so now this glossy finish just makes everything look the same in terms of finishes. And now I'm cutting, I already cut around, I didn't cut them completely out, these other pieces from the bag on the side, and I'm just figuring out how I want to lay them, because I was started off with 6 pieces, but I figured out that 5 just looks better. And so then I'm using my tiny Dollar Tree scissors to cut out each piece in full, and that's the same thing that I did on the front. Yeah, and now I'm just using a lot more Mod Podge to put each individual piece down. And I want to tell you to be really careful with the really skinny stems, because I ripped one of them at the end, but it worked out because I had Mod Podge and I was just able to glue it back in there. And now of course I'm using the Mod Podge to put on the top of all of that. Now I am making my pin loops, and so I was just kind of referencing another project that I did in a different video to see how much paper I needed to trim. So this paper is from the handles of the paper bag, the grocery bag, and now I'm just cutting the second piece to match the same size to make 2 pin loops. Yeah, and so you don't have to use a reference like I did of a previous project. Just use whatever pin you're going to use to measure what you think you'll need. And now I am mixing some Dollar Tree tempera paint, which is what I intended to use, but I didn't realize it was tempera and not acrylic. So I'm mixing that with some very old acrylic paint that I had that's all chunky. And so the liquidity of the I don't know if I said that word right, but because the tempera paint is very liquid, it helped loosen up the thickness of the old acrylic, and then that worked out just fine. So I am painting these strips. I started off with that tempera and that blue, and it was just too watery. So I'm going back over it with this, and I wind up using, I think, 3 coats before that was done. So while it's drying, I'm getting ready to add beads. And off camera, I already put in the elastic for this being a traveler's notebook, because again, I want to be able to use this cover for anything, not just this notebook, but also for a bullet journal or for traveler's notebook inserts. And I already put the elastic in for that, for holding inserts, and I will link for you guys in the description my video that I always use, that I created some time ago. It's only a couple of minutes, that shows you how to create the holes in how to put the thread or thread the elastic for your traveler's notebook. And so what I did here is I tucked the elastic. This is some old Dollar Tree elastic. I tucked it under the 2 elastics on the outside at the top for this, and then I just tied a couple of knots to hold it. I wish I had not done it that way. Normally I hook a lobster claw clasp tassel or pom-pom or something, and then I take the elastic through the O-ring of that lobster claw clasp, because it gives me space between the cover and the beads, and then I don't have to try to move the beads out the way to flatten the notebook while I'm using it, just to make it, completely flat on the table. But I didn't think about that this time for some reason. But anyway, this works no matter what, and especially works if you don't have something with a lobster claw clasp. Now I'm putting the beads in there from Dollar Tree, and I totally forgot I wanted to have some white beads in between. So at the end of this process, you'll see that I've added the white beads. I had to take it all apart and redo it, but I wanted you to see how I did it. So at the end, I take the last bead and I run the elastic back through it again, and then I tie a double knot at the bottom of the bead. Now I had a little bit of trouble because I didn't leave quite enough extra elastic at the bottom like I normally do, and one of my nails broke, and that seems to help. Nails seem to help with this process, but I was able to get the double knot there. And so of course I did the same thing on the other side. I just alternated the blue and the green, and then I added the white on there. Okay, and now I'm going to add a lobster claw clasp. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier on the back here to make it look even cuter, y'all. It looks cuter. So now I need to add my pin loops. So I'm going to bring those out, and you see me fiddling with that because I'm like, those beads are in the way. Okay, so now I've got my pin loops, and you can either put Mod Podge, because this is so matte, you can either put Mod Podge all over the front, let it dry, and all over the back and let it dry first, or you can do what I'm doing right here. I just put some Mod Podge in the inside. I'm using my other project there underneath as a reference. Again, you don't have to do that. I just did because I could. You just use your pen and measure where you want it to go and how high your pen is going to stand. And so I put the Mod Podge in there and just squeezed it to secure the top and the bottom and leave my little opening for my pin loop. And then I'm putting Mod Podge all over the top and the bottom, and I put Mod Podge along the sides as well to make sure everything holds together very well and to give me a little glossy finish. And then I put some Mod Podge on there to glue it up against the pocket for my pin loop. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is cut open your bag. You want to make sure that you don't cut the seam, okay? So here you're going to cut all of the sides. I think I'm just going to show cutting one of them because it's the exact same process all the way around. But you're going to cut the sides without cutting into the seam, and also cut the bottom as well. Just all of that solid color, which is probably the way it is on just about all of the bags. So cut all of that away. Now I didn't cut the one section here. You didn't see me do it on the video. It's still there. I'm going to cut it later. But then you're going to cut the handles off. So you're probably going to have two handles for carrying the bag. There's usually also that little loopy thing that you can hang over like at Walmart to hold your grocery bag open. You're going to cut that off as well. Just cut all those little pieces off. Now, you want to decide how wide you want your traveler's notebook to be. Then just kind of stack up the number of inserts you think you're going to need. So I'm going to be using a kind of paperback bound A5 as well, along with some inserts. Later on, I'm going to decide I don't need it to be that thick, because just this little paperback planner here that's going to go in there, this blank one, is almost the size of 3 of them. But if you want to do use one bag, because sometimes you can't find 2 of the pretty type of bags or whatever you want at Dollar Tree. So I'm trying to do it with just one. If you just want one bag, then it should fit for an A5. If you want to do a smaller size, a standard, a pocket, a passport, any of that, you're definitely only going to need one bag. If you want to do an A5 and not do any stitching at all, because I am doing pockets as well. If you don't want to do any stitching at all, then you're probably going to need 2 bags if you're going to do all glue, and that'll make sense as we go along. So you're going to take that one side, assuming you're using one bag. If you're using 2 bags, then you're going to have to cut or use some more of that blue, cut and tape some stuff together, etc. For the one bag, you're going to make sure that you fold over like I was doing earlier, vertically in half, line up on the right side the part that's already stitched in there, the real pretty greenish blue part. And then you're going to use your bone folder and just really press down to get that crease. I have another A5 that I'm just sitting on top of that to get the height. That's another one that I DIY'd in a different video using a paper bag. And then I just took my ruler, kind of laid it up where the height needed to be, took my pencil and marked it, and then cut that off. Then I'm just taking some binder clips and holding it in place so that I can cut the excess off. Now, I still have that other side, right, from the bag, because all I folded over was just one side. But the top of the bag on the inside is one way, and I wanted the bottom to kind of match the top. So I'm just cutting that bottom off of, or that top off of the other side of the bag, and then I'm going to put it on here at the bottom. So yeah, it is pretty much the same size. Looks like it's a little bit longer, but I don't need that little blue side or bluish green piece on the ends. And that'll make sense when I get ready to stitch, because I don't want anything to be thicker than I need it to be. All right, so then now that it's the bluish green part is off, I'm just lining it up at the bottom, and I'm taking my masking tape and I'm just going to tape it together here first, kind of lining up the tape halfway on the big piece and then halfway on the piece that I'm taping on there. And that can be tricky because it wants to move around and all that. Just take your time. I never get it perfect the first time. I just lay the tape on there, and when I see that it's not centered all the way across, I just adjust it a little bit at a time. It's easy with masking tape. I just lift it up a little bit. I kind of line up the top and then line up the bottom, and just keep moving it around until I get it to really line up really well. So if you feel frustrated with that, don't worry. Sometimes like I said, I have to do it a few times as well, and then I finally get it, and hey, there we are, it's ready. Okay, so then after that's all smooth out, I just put a little pressure on there. I'm going to take my scissors and cut the excess off, and of course I'll just do that on both sides because I just don't need the excess pieces of tape. Okay, and then after I get that off of there, then I'm just going to take the piece that I've added and fold it up just like I'm doing right here. And now the bottom looks just like the top. So that on the inside, I mean, it's in the end, it's not going to look exactly, it's not really so much about it looking exactly the same, but it's more about me having the same thickness and weight match the top and the bottom and the left and the right. So now I'm taking some more masking tape and just putting it over the top, because remember I added that piece at the bottom, I folded it up, and now I just need to tape that folded up part to the inside of this little traveler's notebook. And then I'm just speeding this up because it's the same thing, just cutting that little excess pieces off. And then I still have on the sides, I still need to tape those sides up so that everything is really adhered very well. So I'm just taking another couple of little strips of the tape to put on the sides, and then everything in terms of weight should be the same at the top and the bottom, and right now on the sides, because I haven't added stuff for the pockets yet. That'll come a little bit later. Okay, and then you always want to check. Now I decided, it was ridiculous, I'm not going to need that much space, and I wind up taking one of those inserts out, and later on I decided really I just need that notebook in and like a room for a craft folder and a dashboard kind of in the center, and then like another insert, small insert in the very, very back. But it would all fit no matter what. Okay, so now I just want to thicken and strengthen the inside where the spine is, and so I just took one of those sides that we cut off, the solid color sides, and I'm just going to put that in the center and use some binder clips just to hold it in position here at the top. And so then I just put the tape on either side of this, and then after I get the tape on both sides, then I'm going to go ahead after that and cut the excess tape at the top and the excess fabric, if you will, at the bottom. That's going to make it all just line up and look really, really, really neat. Yeah, of course we're going to do some more stuff to this. But that just makes it really easy using the binder clips to hold things in place, because I don't want to use, it would punch too big of holes to use like stick pins, and then there's places that are really thick and I don't want to do that. So, because it'd be hard. So I'm cutting the excess tape, like I mentioned earlier, and then we'll move on to the next part of this DIY. So there I'm using my little tiny Dollar Tree scissors just to cut those little excess tiny pieces, which really aren't a big deal. Just sometimes I can still be a little perfectionistic. And now I'm adding another piece of tape at the bottom, again, just to give it some more strength, because it's a bit thicker at the top. Yeah, and just for my own sanity to feel like, okay, it's nice and strong. And of course I like to use my bone folder to really, really smooth things in, put pressure, make sure everything is adhering really well, even though I'm going to be using paint and Mod Podge later. That way everything just lays well as I'm working on it. And then of course, we're going to take those binder clips off. Okay, so now I am hand stitching this inside part where the spine is, and you don't have to do that. If you, no matter what, whether you decide you're going to do everything in glue, or you decide you're going to do some of it stitching and some of it glue, you can just glue this part. But I liked the way the stitching looked at the top of the bag, and I was kind of figuring how I wanted to do this project as I went along. So if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have stitched this part at all. But if you can use your sewing machine if you want, or you can hand stitch like I'm doing right here. You just go in and over and under and over, and then there's a space in between, and so you would go back over the other direction to fill in the space where you went under before, and the stitching isn't showing on that particular side. And I just had some pretty close matching thread, and that's what I used, and it worked out pretty easily. But there were some thick areas where the bag handles were, and so I used my what are these called, needle nose pliers that I also have from Dollar Tree. Okay, and so then when you go back in the other direction, if you're going to hand stitch like that, then I always leave extra thread in the beginning before when I start, and then when I get to the end I cut off an extra thread, and then I just triple knot it there at the end. Now later on, when I do some other stitching, I'm only going to go one direction, and I'll do that differently, and you'll see that. So now I'm going to do pockets, and I just took the other side. I remember I had the other side of that bag, and I had trimmed the end to be able to add to this, and I still had enough left to be able to add pockets on the side and still have plenty. And so I just folded it in half to kind of find my center of the bag. It's not perfectly centered along this little white line. I love when I have something with a pattern because it makes it easy to do that. But I'm cutting along a white line that's really close to the center. And then I just took both of those halves and folded them vertically. And see, they will work really nicely to make pockets. So I'm going to stitch that. I'm going to fold it. I'm going to use binder clips. And then I'm going to stitch through all of that. Of course, I'll be using my needle and thread, and I'll be using my needle nose pliers. And it took a while. That's why I decided, ooh, I'm not going back and doing the other direction this time. I'm kind of tired of stitching this way. Of course, you could do it on the sewing machine. And this is why you need to stitch if you're going to use just one bag. So, because if you glue it, you won't have enough room for your cover to fit in there. At least the way that I did it. Now, if I go back and were to start all over, maybe I could have. But yeah, so that is stitched right in there, and you can kind of tell that I only went in one direction, but not too bad because I went along the same holes where the stitching was already. Yeah, and so what I did is when I got to the end, I just back stitched and then took my needle and tucked it through and created some loops and tied knots there, unlike here where I had 2 pieces of string to do it with. Okay, so just let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about that. So now I'm going to add, because I decided I'm tired of stitching, I'm not going to, because I don't have a sewing machine, and when I had one, I'm not good at all at keeping a bobbin threaded. I'm just not. So I need to close up the tops of the pockets. So I'm using my tape to do this. And so what I do, I don't cut the paper or tape or cloth at an angle. I cut a little rectangle out in that space, and then just remove that little extra piece of tape and fold it in. It just works out better for me. I've done that in lots of videos because when I do it at an angle, I always, like, I don't know, cut in too far or something. I just don't do it right. So this way I am taping up the pockets, and then I'm just cutting into the space where the tape is covering up the opening at the top of the pocket. Yeah, I'm just doing that with my scissors. And then I'm just taking another piece of tape around the top of that. I think I might do that on the front too. I can't remember. I think I did. Just because I felt like whenever I folded it over, there just wasn't enough tape for me to feel secure that it's all going to hold really well. So yeah, so then after that, then I'm just taking my white paint, and I'm just painting over all of the masking tape so it doesn't look like masking tape anymore. And I started off with too big of a paintbrush, so I have a smaller one that I'm using now that I can get along the edges better because, you know, I didn't want to waste any painter's tape, because whenever it goes over the edge, you can just take your fingernail and scrape it right off, because this is like recycled plastic is what these bags pretty much are made out of, I think. At least that's what I hope. And so now, sorry about that, you guys, allergies. And so I'm just making sure that everything is folded in half like it should be, that it's even on the right side. And I just want to show you really quick how I do my holes. I have a separate video that I always link for how to thread your elastic, but I just measure, find the center along the fold. I use my awl to punch in the hole, and then I use my bigger awl to make that hole bigger, especially in the center and in the top center holes, top and bottom center holes as well, because I'm running 2 pieces of elastic through there. And so I just mark it with my pencil. And then for the left and the right of the center at the top and the bottom, I just add a little more than 1/4 of an inch from the center and make sure that they're the equal distance from the middle. All right. So then this is what I'm doing for this. Was a Dollar Tree hairpin, as you can see. And some of this I didn't do right, but I fixed it later. So all I'm doing first is just removing the metal part. I just had to open up where it was glued and just pull that part out. I'm not going to show you how I stapled it to close it because that was stupid. It was not a good decision. And so later on I hot glued it. I don't think I filmed that. But yeah, so it's stapled right here. I'm taking my O-ring and my lobster claw clasp and I'm just running it through there, and that just makes me a little charm for the outside front of it. Now for this part, I had a beautiful flower that one of my subscribers, Billy, sent to me, and I just wanted to turn it into something that could kind of hang and dangle as well. And so I just decided to take it and trace it around on some pink cardboard so the back would be pink, but I did it backwards. I didn't realize I needed to flip the paper, so I took the one that I cut out first and then I traced that one, and then I'm going to put that one onto the back here in a minute. That's what I'm cutting out right there. All right, so then first she has some sticky stuff on there, which is perfect, but because I'm going to add the ribbon, I have to use some hot glue. So I'm just going to place the ribbon kind of on the left and the right, sort of on there, and I'm mixing some Dollar Tree craft glue, and I'm mixing it with hot glue because that Dollar Tree craft glue dries permanently really well, just like E6000, only there's no odor. Okay, planner babes, let's go ahead and get started with this Dollar Tree DIY Traveler's Notebook using faux leather. Okay, we're starting with this baking soda box, which I really love these. I keep these because I use a lot of baking soda because they're very strong. They're a lot stronger than a cereal box, but I want to make sure I can find the very center of the spine because I also use these to make junk journals where I would use the whole spine flat just like it is there, but because I'm making a traveler's notebook, I want to find the center. So I just took a little binder clip and put it on the end, and now I'm folding over the center. That made it easy for me to make sure that it didn't move around. And then I'm going to take a bone folder and just really press down on both sides from the top and the bottom of the spine to make sure it's really pressed down and I can see it very well as I'm working, making sure that I'm working with the center because I'm going to need to punch holes there, right? So I checked, I can see it there in the center on the outside and in the inside. And then this is the template that I'm going to use, which is actually a traveler's notebook that I made out of a Dollar Tree shopping bag. I just need the flat part so it would be exactly the same size because I'm putting what was in there inside of this traveler's notebook. So I'm just lining it up and I'm putting a couple of glass jars, one that has the water for the glue that I'm going to be using to weight it down in the middle so it won't move. Now I am taking a pencil and just marking where I want to cut, and it's really important when you're doing something like this to move your hand along where move your left hand if you're right-handed around where your right hand is moving to keep pressing so that nothing will slide, and to go back and forth over and over a little bit as you go, because it is awful for me when I think I've marked something that I'm tracing and then I lift it up and I don't have a mark there where I needed it. So then after that, I'm going to go ahead and puncture where I need my holes to be. I'm just reusing the holes that were in my template, and this is an awl that I've had for a long time. Now, ideally, you would want to not punch your holes until you're completely done covering everything and you're pretty much done with the project. But I like to punch my holes as I go because if I mess up on this cardboard, nobody's going to see that. But if I don't punch my holes until the end, I can't really fix it depending on how bad I mess up. So I'm just going to punch them right now. I just kind of punched them a little bit and then went back in through them to make sure I had a really good hole. And you'll see I'm going to have to repeat that a couple of times and it'll make sense as we go. Now I'm using my paper trimmer just to cut the right and the left side of where I traced my template because they're pretty straight. But for the top and the bottom, I'm going to actually use scissors because when I cut this box open, as obviously you can see, I cut one side of it out. I didn't make sure everything was completely straight whenever I just store them away for future projects. And so it's kind of jagged on the edges there. And you know when you use a paper cutter and you don't need to cut very much, it's a really narrow cut, that sometimes the paper machine, or it's not a machine, I guess it is a mechanical machine, the paper trimmer will bunch up the paper or the cardboard. So this is the vinyl, you just saw it there for a second, from Dollar Tree that I'm going to use. Now y'all know I love Mod Podge, but I decided that I'm loving this Aleene's tacky glue better for some of my projects. And I got this from Dollar Tree. You can get it at Michael's or anywhere because it dries a lot quicker and it's nice and tacky and strong. And so I just put a lot on there, and then I put some more along the edges because I really want to make sure my edges are sticking very well. Now, instead of just cutting about how much I think I need, I like to just lay the whole thing down there and then cut the excess. So I'm using my Dollar Tree little smoothing tool, I can't think of the word for this, to just smooth it out, which is very easy with this vinyl and this cardboard, to just make sure that everything is nice and smooth so I don't have any lumps. And then I'm just turning it over and wiping off the excess glue because I definitely had more glue than I needed, which I remembered to have a wet rag around this time, you guys. I forget that a lot. So now I'm just going over on the other side, definitely pressing on the edges because I want those to stick really well. It's not going to make as much a difference later when I trim it, but I'm just always conscientious of that and wiping off the extra glue on my little smoothing tool. Now I'm taking my scissors and cutting along the edge. So you want to make sure you don't cut too far inside. So what I like to do is just angle the scissors as I cut. As you can see, I kind of leaned into the left to keep from cutting into the outside, if that makes sense, because then you don't want to turn it over and find that part of the box is showing. Although, you know, it's not going to be perfect. Just wiping off my excess glue and then just continuing to do that on the other side as well. And of course, I'll do that on the very bottom and just wiping my excess glue as I go along because you don't want to wait and then have dry glue or your scissors stuck together. That's not fun, right? So then I have a little bit of excess sticking out. So I'm just using my Dollar Tree little tiny pink scissors that I love so much. They help me cut little areas, little tiny close areas like that. Now this doesn't matter as much right now. I mean, I think it does. I think it's important to still do it now because I'm going to be folding the whole thing over here a little bit later, making sure it's all even, and then I'll cut some excess. But I'm not going to need to cut excess all the way around, so it's still important for me to do this part right now. Now, because I need to be able to see the holes on both sides as I work, I'm going to press into the holes again because now I've laid some faux leather on and I can't see holes on the other side. So this is the only downside of punching your holes as you go instead of at the end, because then you got to punch them through again when you add more layers. So now I've added some more Aleene's glue to the other side because I'm going to put a layer of the faux leather on there. So I did need 2 packages of Dollar Tree faux leather because it was not enough in one to cover both the inside and the outside. So now here we have it on the other side, and I'm just smoothing it out just like I did before. And then of course wiping off all of my excess glue. It just makes everything so much easier, and then I don't get wet drying glue on my fingers sticking to my project, which I hate that. So now of course I'm taking my scissors and cutting out the entire thing so both sides will be covered and it will be fun. Yay, the project is coming along. Okay, now here I didn't think what I should have done as I was putting that second layer on is fold it up just like I'm doing right now. Folded up the cover, kind of bending it to see, because you know once you have something flat glued and then you move it, you bend it, then it can bubble up because you really needed more material. So I can't quite fix that at this point because I've already cut it all, but just be aware of that. And so now I'm going back in and punching my holes there on the other side that I have completely glued. And you know, for some reason these holes, because I'm not using grommets, they like to kind of collapse on themselves, and so I have to redo these holes as I go along until I get the elastic in there. So now I am reusing the elastic from the other project that I showed you guys. That was my template, and this elastic is from Dollar Tree. It's definitely thin elastic, but it still works. It's still effective. I prefer the much thicker elastic, but this works just as well. So then what I did is ran the elastic through there, and then I need to open up my hole a little bit wider so I can get the other end of that elastic through there, because that's going to be the part that goes around the cover to hold everything in. So I hope that makes sense, but you guys can see what I'm doing. Now at first I'm not going to do a triple knot on this, because I'm just going to do one simple one, because I don't really know how tight I need the elastic to be until later when I put the insert that I'm going to use inside there. So now I'm just opening up the hole some more, because I'm gonna at the top and then at the bottom, because I'm getting ready to run the elastic through here, and you can see how this works. So first I go from the inside and pull it through, and then of course I need to open up my hole again because they collapse, and then I'm going to put the elastic through that outside part, and then I'm going to go directly across from the inside after I get that opened up and pull that elastic through, and then I'm going to go through the outside directly across from the other hole, if that makes sense, and then I'm going to tie that. And you want to make sure that you don't tie it too tight. I usually try to let it have a little bit of give, because then it just bends your traveler's notebook on the outside. And so then I'm going to do almost the same thing on this side, but the trick is that I have to go back through holes again, kind of like I did in the center. So first I'm going to go from the inside and pull that piece through, then I have to go back through this hole. Now I don't have to, there's different ways that you can do elastic for traveler's notebooks, but I like this way the best because I think it looks the neatest. So I opened up the hole some more. You got to be careful to make sure you're going back through the hole and not puncturing another hole on the outside or the inside where you don't want it. So then I'm just basically doing the same thing I did before. I'm going directly across and through that hole, and then back through this center hole on the other end, making sure I'm getting my hole to go through where I want, and then put that elastic through there, and then I will tie this one. Yeah, and then I've got all my elastics to put 4 traveler's notebooks in there if that's what I want to do. Now I'm folding it closed, and I see that I've got a little bit of excess on the bottom on both sides, so I'm going to just take a pencil and mark where I want to trim the excess, and being really careful to make sure that my pencil mark actually shows up. And then I'm doing that there at the bottom where I've got some excess as well. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want it to be obvious that it's a little bigger on one side or whatever. And then I'll just cut the excess on there. Then I need to flip it over on the other side and see if I have some excess, which I do. And so I'm just doing the same thing there. And then of course I will cut that excess off as well. And now what I need to do is, before I do all the decorating, I want to put in this insert. So this is actually a sketchbook. It is not a traveler's notebook insert, because I like to be able to use my traveler's notebooks both as books that can hold multiple inserts and as folios, but I don't have pockets in this one. And if I don't have pockets and I want to be able to use it for one big thing like a sketchbook like this, then I do just like you see me doing right there. I adjust the elastic so that I can run one piece all the way through that opening. You know, on bound books like that, if you open it up in the middle, you can see that there's a gap. And so I just run the elastic through the gap, and then I'm tying it there at the bottom, and I'm going to at least double knot that. Sometimes I'll triple knot it, and I'm going to use that excess elastic here a little bit later to do some decorating, and you'll see that. So now I see how tight I need to do my elastic in the center to go around the entire notebook, and so now I'm going to triple knot that there in the center, and yeah, make sure it's about how I want it to be and not too tight. And then I will triple knot that. Now I'll triple knot that, and then I have kind of a lot of excess elastic there, so I'm going to go ahead and just trim some of that, and then take a little lighter from Dollar Tree and burn the ends. Now I'm going to start decorating. So here on the outside I'm going to be using these beautiful removable stickers from Dollar Tree. I love them so much. I think this artwork is just incredible. It's amazing. Honestly, Dollar Tree artwork stuff that's in canvas, you know, wall design, some of the artwork that I've gotten there has been really beautiful, especially ladies, women, just some really cool things. I don't see those all the time, and the watercolors sometimes are really beautiful. So these are removable, as you can see right there, which is so awesome. So if I ever want to change this design, I can. I really love it, so I don't know if I will, but I can remove these and just periodically have a different design on this traveler's notebook. This faux leather and these removable stickers work so well together. So I'm just going back and forth, trying to kind of mix up the colors. I don't want to have like a bunch of pink on one side and a bunch of blue on one side. So I'm trying to kind of mix up the more neutral colors, kind of have on one side to have some blue, some pink, and some a little bit more neutral. And then I'm just going to use some of the other little accessories, if you will, on here. There's like some leaves that I think look really good. I want to fill in the space, but not too full. I want everything to be spaced out really well. So I was looking for another piece right here, and I thought this might work, but it looks a little too big. So I'm going to take that and go ahead and put it in the back, which I think looks great there. And then I just need a little piece to fit right in this spot, and I think that will be super cute. Yay! I love it. They feel so good, and I'm so glad they're removable, because then if I didn't like where something was placed, I could just easily move it. Yeah, so that is awesome. So now we're going to close that, and it's time to do some decorating on the side. Okay, so here on the side, I'm just going to take my awl and kind of open up the elastic a little bit, and then I'm going to take a strip of elastic and run through there. So I have two pieces that are about the length of the traveler's notebook, and I'm going to run some beads through here, you guys, and I get all of my beads from Dollar Tree, and I'm so grateful. Anytime I feel like, oh, I don't have any like that, or I need some more of this color, then I shop at Dollar Tree, you guys, nowhere else, because they're just unique to me. And so I'm kind of doing a little pattern here. I want to do a brown wooden bead, that one that's kind of oblong there at the top, and then a white bead, and then a not neon, but this kind of iridescent pinkish one, and then blue, and then just keep doing that pattern all the way. Oh no, and then I add gold. Yeah, gold after the blue. And then I'm just continuing with that pattern, which I think really works well. It's blending all the colors. And then at the end, I just take the very last bead, I take the elastic and run it back through it. And then I try a knot, either double or triple knot after that. So, and I'll show you guys that again with another set of beads. I think it was the ones that I'm going to do at the end, so in case you didn't see that well, you can see it. And then I'm going to cut the excess and then just burn the end with my little Dollar Tree lighter. And then this one, I did the same thing, but I did that iridescent pinkish color and gold combo. Now here at the bottom, if you remember, I have a really long piece and then a shorter piece, and so I want to kind of cover up the fact that I've got two pieces there. So I am running the elastic through both of them, and then I was doing that, and I felt like I still had too much of that little piece, and I burned myself. So I wanted to cut some of that off, and then I just didn't have that much elastic to work with, and I burned myself a little bit. But I don't have a burn, it was just a little sting. And then I'm adding more beads after that, and now I did the same thing. I ran the bottom piece, the elastic back through the bottom bead, last bead, and then burn the end. And this is how it looks so far, y'all. So what I am doing is I am using this traveler's notebook that I already have. I bought it on Amazon a long time ago. I'm using this as a template, and it's just not as pretty. It's so weird to say that because I really decorated it very heavily, but the cover is just very neutral, and I'm more of a color everywhere type of person, and so I find myself always having to get caught up in it because I don't want to look in it, or I don't want to open it as much. Is that kind of weird, you guys? The prettier it is, the more I want to use it. So I'm taking everything out of it, and then I'm going to reuse the elastic that's in here. And then so I'm reusing the elastic that's in the inside as well, which it was really made kind of weird. It wasn't set up exactly like you see I'm doing right here. It was like this one piece that kind of went all the way through and back around. It was kind of weird. And it's not that I tied, it's kind of tight. So I finally did get that off, and you can see where the holes are and how the elastic was when I ran it back through. And then of course there's that outside piece. So this is where it looks when everything is out of it. And I am using here just a piece of cardboard that was in some packaging that was at my parents' house. We moved them in with us. I was there January 26th through February 27th, and so we had all kinds of different things and boxes and stuff, and this was just in something that was, I don't know, had come in the package or whatever. And does anybody else look at cardboard or little scraps of things and think I can make something out of that? Well, I do that all the time. I loved the weight of it, the texture of it. It's just, I don't know, there was something special about it. So I was like, I'm going to make something out of that. So as you can see, I'm just tracing every aspect of this traveler's notebook cover that I got from Amazon. As you can see, I'm also tracing in the circles for where the elastic is going to go in there as well. And it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you guys can see the little outline on there, but then that is going to be perfect. I'm going to be mimicking that size, which is important because everything that's going inside came from the other one, and so I want it to be the exact same size. And I just wanted to show you guys that I am putting on my compression gloves, which is very important for me to do. I had not been doing it for a while, which is a no-no because I work with my hands so much. You know, I'm cutting, I'm just using a lot of those fine motor skills with my hands, and I recently was doing a lot of color pencil work for my Patreon members, and I did like a whole lot in one day, and then my hands started hurting, and I was like, you know what, I forgot I should be wearing these compression gloves. Yeah, so here I was just cutting out. I really should have used my paper trimmer. I don't know why I didn't, but I was cutting out what I traced. And you know, sometimes when you do something on a fold, you know how I kind of positioned the template, the other traveler's notebook on there is my template, and it's not always perfectly on the fold, like I can tell by where I mark the circles that it isn't. Then I'm just using my hands to really reposition it first before I use my bone folder, because I've learned in the past that if I think, okay, I'm going to move it over with my hands, I'm going to put pressure on the left side, and then I'm going to use my bone folder on the right side, and it's going to turn out perfectly. It doesn't. It moves. So that way, by working with it where it was more malleable with my hands, then I could really get it the way I want it. As you can see, it lined up nicely, and then I can use my bone folder because it is can't talk today. It is exactly the way I want it to be lined up. So I'm just putting some more pressure for it over on the other side as well, and then it should be really good to go. Yeah, of course you guys know I love to use my bone folder. It's just very relaxing to me. I don't know, it is for me. And so you can see everything is perfectly lined up. So now I'm going to take my awl. This is my smaller awl. I have a bigger one that you'll see later on as well, and I'm just going through where those holes are. Now throughout today's video, you're going to see me go back through those holes multiple times because I'm going to be covering parts of it, and then if I can't see it, then I don't remember where the holes are, and I don't want to have to be repositioning over and over to find where the holes are. So yeah, so I'm just going back through all the holes, and so there's the center one and then two for the top and the bottom, or two at the top and two at the bottom. Now I don't normally like to put my traveler's notebook holes vertically like this. I prefer to do them horizontally, but I'm just using the template, so I didn't think about that. So this is going to be my very first time, you guys, using Dollar Tree. This is not contact paper. What is this called, y'all? What is this called? The word will come to me in a minute. But this stuff, I'm using this stuff from Dollar Tree that you put into, you know, a paper cutting machine. I don't know why I can't find that word right now, but anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. So I'm using it in here. I apologize for the noise in the background. You know, there's a lot of people in the house right now. My daughter's visiting as well, so just excuse that. So I'm just marking what size I need to cover it. So I'm actually covering the outside first, and then I'm going to do another layer in the inside. Vinyl, there's that word that escaped my brain. Finally found it. So I'm just cutting, you know, about an inch and a half or so all around, so that I can kind of pull it over on the sides and everything and completely cover the front. So I'm just cutting that out. And again, I don't know why I'm not using my paper trimmer, but for some reason, I guess because I have my compression gloves, I thought I'd use my scissors. So yeah, so I'm just going to pull that. Now this was really super easy to work with, you guys. I am telling you, after this, I am never using contact paper again. Now, I have some contact paper already, so I'm definitely going to use that because I already purchased it. But in the future, I'm using vinyl because it's so easy. And it just doesn't bubble up, you know. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because it's heavier or it's smoother. I really couldn't tell you. If you know, let me know in the comments below. But I did make this mistake, you guys, and I could have done this with contact paper before, and I've never done it. I don't know why I did it today, but you know how one side of that paper is glossy and the other is matte, and so I just didn't pay attention to how my roll got caught in the matte side of the paper, and it kind of stuck. But it doesn't matter because I'm going to be covering that up anyway. So I just smoothed it out with one of those Dollar Tree, I don't know what you call them, a smoothing tool. Gosh, speak, Lucinda, slow down. Tool to just smooth it out. I mean, it might kind of buckle a little bit, but whenever I would just roll that across it, it was so easy. Like nothing, no bubbles remained. It was completely smooth with absolutely minimal effort. And so now I'm cutting just a diagonal in the corners, which I used to not do this. In fact, I hadn't done that in a really long time. Instead, I would kind of cut a little square out in the corners because I would mess up. Because I don't know, I would like cut too close, but I took a chance today and it worked out really well. So you see, I'm puncturing through the holes again because on the other side, when I work with it, I need to be able to see where the holes are. So I'm just going back through there, making sure I can see, and then I'm going to fold in the vinyl over the cardboard. So you see, as I'm doing it here, I'm just folding it down in the center and then smoothing it on the left and the right, and it just worked perfectly, you guys. So easy. I'm gonna buy up every Dollar Tree color of vinyl that I can find because this is so easy. It just stuck really well because, you know, when I would use contact paper sometimes in the corners, when I would try to do it this way to, you know, wrap everything around, there'd be like a little corner or a bubble. I mean, there'd always be bubbles no matter what I did. And so this is perfect. I love the way it looks. I'm so happy. Now the paper is textured, so I can kind of see the texture because that would make sense, right? But it's not going to show up with what we're doing. Now, of course, I cut out another piece, a square, to go in the center, and I'm using a light pink color of the vinyl to go on top of this, and it just worked out really super well. Look at that. Of course, I was careful this time and made sure I didn't let any of the matte side of the paper stick to the sticky part of the vinyl, and so that worked out perfectly. I'm sorry about the glare that shows up a little bit. I don't know what it is. I think I need to reposition my lights because I've been having glare issues here in the last few videos, so I will try to address that for you guys. So now I'm going back in and puncturing the holes because I've got that pink side and the inside, and I need to be able to see on both sides whenever I go to put the elastic back in there. So I know that might seem kind of cumbersome, and I could have waited until I covered everything and then positioned the cover back on top and then punctured the holes, but I didn't think about that. So I'm using some Dollar Tree floral or flowers, you guys, stickers, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this where it's not all raised like that. It's not 3D. So I used some already, as you can see. So what I do is I just take my nails, so I'm just peeling all of that back part off, and it's just a regular piece of paper there. And then I'm going to show you how I do it when it's 3D, because that was, but it was just one layer. So here, when I have 2 layers, I just put my little Dollar Tree scissors in between there and cut it off, and it barely leaves any sticker residue on the bottom piece. And then I just have to peel it off of the top piece. And then I'm just positioning them where I want them to be, because I'm going to cover the entire thing in these flowers. Now you're going to see later, if you look at this and see how colorful this is by the time I get finished, this was supposed to be the front. This side right here was supposed to be the front, but I don't know where my mind was, but it wound up being in the back, and I was a little disappointed because it's so pretty. But here I'm just taking a picture with my phone in case some like east wind comes by, or I bump it and knock it on the floor and I don't remember how I positioned the flowers, so I just took a picture of it both, you know, where I had one side done and then the other. So now I'm just taking a simple glue stick and putting glue behind each of the flowers and putting them right back where I wanted them to be. Now I did really good on all except for like a couple of them, of making sure I had enough glue and enough pressure for them to be completely flat. I am going to put a coating on that afterwards, but there was a couple of times I didn't, and I don't want to use any liquid glue to kind of fix those. I mean, they're all adhered, they're all down, but there's like a couple of places on 2 of them, I think it is, where it's just a little raised, and I didn't want that. And so I'm going to get some Dollar Tree super glue, gel super glue, to fix that. So what I'm using is some professional grade Liquitex. So it's called Liquitex Professional Gloss Varnish over the top, and I'm using that instead of Mod Podge, which y'all know Mod Podge is my go-to, but it does stick on surfaces like this against something else with a similar surface, and especially if you use too much. And I mean, it doesn't like stick to where it damages it, but I don't like for it to stick like that, and so this gloss varnish does not stick at all. So now I'm just opening up my hole a little bit bigger to get both sides of this elastic. Remember, we're reusing the elastic back inside of here, so it's real easy to get it the one end in there, but then to get both ends through there, I had to use my bigger awl. So this small awl I got from Hobby Lobby years ago, and I don't think they carry those anymore, but let me know if they do. And then the big one I actually got at Lowe's, so that's more for more construction grade stuff. So I'm not going to tie my knot in the center until later. I'm not sure if I filmed that part because I'm not sure how tight I need it to be until I get everything back in there. And so I'm just making my holes a little bit wider because for some reason, whether it's paper or fabric, no matter what I use, the holes kind of collapse in on themselves after a while, and so I always have to open them back up, especially since I'm not using grommets. I just don't really ever use those. And so now I'm just showing you I'm putting everything back through the elastic, back through those holes, and it's going to be just like it was in the other project. Yeah, so I just got to open them up a little bit. Sometimes I open it up a little bit bigger than, you know, I really ideally wanted the hole to be just big enough to get the elastic through so it doesn't look messy on the outside. I felt like the one in the center I had to make a little bit bigger than I wanted to, and then what I can do is just take my nail and kind of press it back in. I wish I had not trimmed right here like I did. I trimmed some of the paper, some of the cardboard, because no one's gonna notice but me. I could see where I did that and I didn't need to do that. Yeah, so now I'm just putting the last piece, the last end of the elastic through there, and then I'll just adjust it. Just for me, I like for the tie, the knot that I do in the end to be right in the center as best I can, and I wanted to be careful not to tie it too tight. I want to give it some give it some give so that my inserts can fit in there nicely and not be too tight. And then what I'm going to do, so I've already put everything back in there, and you guys saw what was in there before, but I will flip through it some here at the end. And so I'm just taking, this was the piece that had tape. I had clear tape inside of the other traveler's notebook. I'm just putting some Dollar Tree permanent double-sided tape on there, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other piece that was actually tucked into the front of the other traveler's notebook, and I'm going to tape them with this permanent double-sided tape in the inside and the front and the back. And so I used that little tool for vinyl from Dollar Tree. Finally I got to use it, and it was really cool. I used that to actually pull up the double-sided tape, and so here I'm just positioning this little piece piece that I made in the previous video. I'm just lining it up on the right edge. I thought it would look good. I felt like in the front I had kind of a lot of pink left, but on the other side, on the other edge, but then the back one I think it looks really good. So I just did the same thing, put the Dollar Tree permanent double-sided tape on there. And now I'm just putting this right there in the front, and then everything is really in there except for I'm going to put the little tassel there on the outside, that same tassel that was on the other one. I'm just fitting everything in there. Now there were a couple of inserts I didn't put back in there. There were a couple of calendars that I had in there. I had 3. I really only needed 1, so I took the other 2 out. They were really pretty. I had decorated them, but they didn't quite fit for some reason back in here, even though I was using everything is the same size as the template, but maybe it was because of the material. I'm not sure. So now I'm just tying this back on there, which I love it so much. And then I felt like it was unraveling at the end, so I just tied a knot at the end of each end. My vocabulary is crazy today. And then I'm just going to cut the excess off of there and tie it into a nice bow. And then y'all saw me move my glasses because for things up close I can't see them. I have to take my glasses off. That's what happens when you get older, y'all. Okay, you guys, I have a DIY traveler's notebook for you, and we are going to be reusing some packaging. Yes, so it's important to reduce our waste and then to reuse whatever we do purchase to help our planet, our environment, all that good stuff, and then recycle if it's possible. And of course you can recycle a cardboard box, but why not make something really fun out of it? So I am using, as you can see here, a box that used to have crackers in it, and what I did is I cut the spine down. I made it a little bit narrower because it was really pretty wide, and then I did that off camera, and so I cut that. I cut the top and the sides of the box, all except for the pieces that you see here. So then what I needed to do was tape the spine back together. So I'm just using some Dollar Tree masking tape. All I did is I took a piece of tape and I laid it across one of the pieces that I needed to tape together, where the cardboard was in the center of the tape vertically, and then I took the other piece and I laid it on top of that tape right next to the other piece of cardboard so that I could position it a little bit more easily. And now what I need to do is mark where I want my pockets to fold in. So the width of these 2 pieces on either side of my spine are not wide enough for the size pockets that I want. So what I'm doing is I am just taking my ruler and marking the width of marking the width of the sides of the traveler's notebook, the front and the back. And then I use the traveler's notebook that you see at the top of the screen there on the left as my reference. Now I also have templates that I've created over the years, but it was just easier for me to just pull this one out because it's designed the same way. It's also from an old cardboard box. So I marked on either side where that sits, and I'm just positioning it again just to double check. That's what I was doing right there. And then I am going to lay or fold up the pieces like I'm doing right here and just mark with my ruler where it's not even. So as you can see, when I lay my ruler on there, both ends are lined up with the ruler, but there's some cardboard sticking out right there. And so I'm just taking my pen and marking that so that I can cut that off. And we're going to work on the pockets here in a little bit to expand them. So I marked where the pockets will go, but we're going to add some more cardboard, and I'll show you that in a little bit to make the pockets wider. So right now we're just setting everything up. I'm using some binder clips to help hold the box still so that I can have a nice even cut where I've marked. And that's what we're doing right there, y'all. Yeah, and so then the top and the bottom should be pretty even, but every time I do something new, tape a new piece or something, I always double check and then I make adjustments. So now we're just gonna look, open that up and check again to make sure everything is the way I want it, but also now I needed to mark my height because the box is a little too tall. And so I'm just sitting the other traveler's notebook as my reference on top of the box and marking where I want to cut. So I just did it across the center, so I knew that I would probably have a pretty straight line. And then I'm taking my ruler, which this is a beautiful green ruler that I got from the 99-cent store that I shared in a haul recently. So yeah. And yeah, I'm just moving it down a little bit further to have a nice straight line. I totally forgot that I had an 18-inch ruler as well. I'm going to bring it out later in the video. That would have made it easier for me to draw my straight line. You know, sometimes we forget, oh, I have something for that. Okay, so now these are two other pieces of cardboard that were the sides, the narrow side, kind of a spine side of other projects that I did. So I save all these cardboard pieces. Anytime I have a cardboard box, I save it so that I can use it for other projects. Now, this process of combining the two pieces is the same as I did earlier. So I'm taking that 18-inch ruler and I'm positioning it on the line that I've marked where I wrote here on both sides as where I needed to fold in the cardboard to make my pocket. Because again, remember I added more cardboard to make my pocket wider. And so I'm going to do that on both sides, and then after I fold it, I see that my sides aren't straight either, so I'm going to mark those and cut those as well. And so what I'm doing right now, this is not Dollar Tree, this is Duct brand duct tape. And it is not your Dollar Tree brand, so I never really thought about it. I guess I haven't bought Duct brand, the really good quality, strong, thick duct tape in a long time. I've done so many things with Dollar Tree duct tape, and the Dollar Tree duct tape is a lot thinner. It's still good, but it's not as thick, not as strong as Duct brand, and so it takes some force to get it off the roll and to spread it out onto the cardboard. So take your time. You won't always be able to get it perfectly straight. It's so much easier to get the Dollar Tree duct tape straight on a project than it was this tape. So what I decided to do instead of putting the tape, oh, and by the way, I've done duct tape traveler's notebooks before that I've showed you guys after I completed them, but I didn't show you actually this process of doing them. And those all had Dollar Tree duct tape, I think. Yeah, I think so. And so what I'm doing here in the inside for the area that the pocket is going to cover, I'm not going to use duct tape in the areas that it's not going to be showing. I am going to tuck it in. I did tuck it in a little bit under the pocket to make sure that no cardboard shows at all. But I didn't feel the need to put it all over the inside in the areas that you're never going to see with the pocket. I can just save that for another project. And so then if you want it to look completely smooth and flat like I've done in other projects, you would line your duct tape right up against the edge of the other strip. But I wanted to have more of a layered look on this project, more sort of a 3D kind of thing, you know, with more texture. Not that duct tape doesn't have plenty of texture, but it's still, the print is pretty flat. So, so I am layering mine over about a quarter of an inch over the edge, overlapping the previous strip on my project. And so yeah, so that's what we've done now. What I'm doing right there is I'm overlaying a strip around the sides of the pocket so that everything looks really smooth, that there's no cardboard showing up anywhere, and that everything just looks, kind of professional. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut the end of that, and of course I'm going to do that on both sides, and just fold it over so that it just looks really neat, y'all. And there's probably, I'm trying to think, did I exactly do things in this order last time? Probably not, but I don't think there's a perfect way to do this, but this was the way I did it. And so now I'm just overlaying strips on the top and the bottom of each pocket as well. So it's the exact same process. Yeah. And then I'll just fold that over. I think I only showed me doing it on one this time, but sometimes the tape sticks out or I didn't get it quite straight on there. So I just cut the end like I did right there. And then I'll just fold that up. And you guys, I had to do quite a bit of editing on this video in terms of what was all in frame, because I started this project one day and continued it a different day, and I totally forgot to put my hair up. And so my locks, if you're not aware, I have dreadlocks, and they were just hanging into the frame, and I wouldn't even notice that when I was working on the project. So I was like, this looks so weird, because you can't see all of my head, you just see these things dangling. Yeah, so I had to edit all that. Okay, so now let's see, what am I doing right here? Okay, so now that I've done the tops and the bottoms, wrapped that around with duct tape and the sides of the pockets, now I'm layering, and I just decided to speed this up. I'm layering on top of the parts of the pocket that you still see the cracker box. Yeah. So, and this was a little bit of a struggle to get it straight, get the tape straight. So I kept having to pull it back a little bit and roll it back up. But eventually I was able to get them all there. And because I was doing the layered look, I didn't worry about if there was like a little strip sticking out, in terms of the different layers that you see, like maybe there was a shorter layer that you could see under a longer layer. I was like, this is totally fine because I'm doing the layered look, no biggie. So if you're doing this and you're going edge to edge, just realize if you're using the duct tape brand that you're gonna probably have to redo a few to get it to look like you want it to look. But if you're less worried about that, it'll be a much better experience, and just, enjoy wrapping that tape around. But if you have Dollar Tree tape, you will absolutely be able to get it to look exactly the way you want it to, much easier. Okay, and I just love this duct tape. I also had it in a haul. Actually, I think it was that same haul that I just did that had the green ruler, because I love pink and green. Yeah, and I mentioned in that video that I wasn't sure if the silver ruler I already had was going to fit in my go bag, but it did. Yes, yay. So yeah, everything is taped up, and then I'm just going to put the holes in it to make it a traveler's notebook.